I don't think that this sort of the everythingness is what makes this ubiquitous. I think you just have one vertical, then the next vertical, then the next vertical, and then sooner or later these things start flowing together. You know, I'm looking at the monitor and what's up here, and you have sort of your Tumblr logo, all these sharing logos. I kind of imagine that the Internet of Things, the connected home, as being something that is really together will emerge in a similar way like that. Like things just get tacked on, and then at some point it becomes normal to have a bunch of things strung together. But it emerges from a bunch of verticals.
I think it is micro-targeting. You know, you buy it for one reason, you fall in love with it for five. Like for me, it's having my own personal TV station, watch my kids eat breakfast when I'm on a business trip, right? You know, I can have a camera on the kids' table. It's really fun. That's hard to explain for a call center agent, like this is why you want to buy it. But it's why I fall in love. I then tell my college roommate, he says, why do you need this? I'm like, well, actually, you might enjoy it for this reason. You'd be surprised how many people with dogs love the system so they can watch their dog at work, right? I mean, they spend time watching their dog at work. And then, so imagine when you have a Milk-Bone dog dispenser, right? I'm going to feed with a mic, hey, Fido, boom, you know, and then you start saying, oh, well, the smoke detector goes off, open up the doggy door so that Fido can get out of the house because he can't unlock a door, right? You know, and so you start thinking of all these crazy scenarios, and I think those micro use cases are what gets somebody to say, I have to have this. And then it sort of pieces together.
You know, I'll add one other thing that is maybe obvious, but it's price as well. So, you know, a lot of these things we're talking about, not all of them, have been available for a long time, right? The Jetsons home, you know, that was in the 50s, but you could get automated thermostats and automated lights and curtains and all these things. It just cost you $10,000, if not $100,000. So I think what's really exciting with some of the technology that's out there today, whether it's hardware or software, some of the wireless protocols we're working with, you can now get that kind of totally connected home that you thought was only available to the 1% of the population to now the 90% of the population. It only costs you a few $100s and sometimes a monthly fee and sometimes not. So I actually think the price coming down has been a huge reason that this is now no longer just for the top demographic.
We're just at the front end of that curve.
Yeah, I think we're going to keep, I mean, we've already seen it, right? I mean, if you asked me 3 years ago when we launched this, the awareness around what home management or smart home was nothing. We've done the research. And now, you know, and it's not just because it's marketing, it's because they're like, wow, this actually applies to me.
Rackspace sells Microsoft or Linux servers, right? They're both in there. And so the Zigbee would be more analogous to the Linux server, and Microsoft would be more analogous to Z-Wave. It's a proprietary. They each have their strengths. And so I think both survive. And then there's the physics component. People just sort of forget that, like, oh, well, why can't you just do this on Wi-Fi? Well, Wi-Fi requires more power. It has different data ranges, and I'm a history major, not a physics person at all, but you know, Bluetooth works within 10 meters. So you have to choose the protocol that matches the need. And so and then my third point would be, right now it's all greenfield, so when Time Warner goes into a house, they can install it. Like my house, because I have everything that's ever been invented by our system in my house, because I get it for free, you know, when I sell that house, I'm going to tell the person, say, you need to go use Time Warner Intelligent Home, because I have $4,000 worth of equipment, thermostats, door locks, everything you can imagine in here. Well, you know, a Z-Wave, they come into that house, they'd want to, it doesn't work for them. So I think once you start seeing all these homes, I don't know if it's 10, 15, 20 years with embedded equipment, you're going to get a bridge device, right? People are going to say, it's got to work across both. You know, Time Warner's going to say, I don't want to be prevented from going to that house because the previous owner had it. So they'll either put both radios in the gateway, or they'll do a bridge device. And I think it's really the proprietary protocols that are actually going to be squeezed out here to more standards-based approach.
My perspective is that I think Tom's right that you'll have stranded assets that get connected via these various bridge devices. I think the biggest role standards have played so far is in applying friction, frankly, because until, I don't know, the last year or so, a lot of these standards just weren't very good. They just didn't perform that well. They weren't defined well enough so that you could make two devices that talk to each other and that were supposed to talk to each other, and they really did. I think the mistake that a lot of them made was that they mixed the network layer and the application layer. It would have been really great if someone had done a completely IP-based RF sort of mesh network for the home that succeeded commercially. For a bunch of reasons, that didn't happen. But you know, the fact that today you can't just sort of, the beautiful thing about IP is that you can just invent something new in software and you don't have to change anything at the hardware level necessarily if you have a few basic things in place. The thing that is really annoying about Zigbee and Z-Wave is that the protocol defines what you can do, and if you want to upgrade that, you can't necessarily upgrade that. You have devices that have been hung on the wall, and they're just, you know, they know how to do what they know how to do. You can't make up new words. You can't make up new applications. So I think that will, I think we're at a point where that's not that much of an issue. But I live, you know, I started EnergyHub in 2007, and we lived through 3 or 4 years of just incredible friction and people saying no to deploying technology because it wasn't really ready. And I wish that we were at a better place than we are now.
Yeah, and on the last point, I think from my perspective, you're going to start seeing more cloud-to-cloud integration where it doesn't matter. Like what Seth was talking about is true, but you're talking about devices in the home.
Yes.
Eventually, you know, those devices are going to connect to the internet, and you know, the cloud's going to integrate with the cloud, and it's all going to work. So I think the problem probably goes away.
What's going to drive adoption? Is it convenience, or can you make a clear, strong, or energy consumption, right? Reducing energy consumption. What's really going to drive the adoption, you know, long term?
Well, so long term. So we have about 900,000 people using our system, and when we survey them, overwhelmingly, like 85, 90%, people say the reason I bought this was the convenience, the control aspect of I can take my phone out of my pocket and see what temperature it is. I can change the temperature. I can pull up a video, whatever. For us, it's all around sort of comfort and climate control. When you ask them what the second reason was, they split equally between people who said they did it to save money and people who say that they did it to save energy for sort of climate and environment reasons. But very few people put either of those first. Almost everybody said, I bought this for convenience. The narrative we tell ourselves, at least, is you sort of buy it because it's cool, and then you justify it to your spouse because it's going to save you money.
Adam, is that kind of what you find?
You know, I think it's a little bit we talked about before. What's really going to take it to the next level is, this is easy to say, but it's hard to do, is really making sure it's easy to use for the mass market. I really believe that a lot of these products, and you know, are developed by technologists and engineers, and it works, but it's not so. But it's not. Sorry.
I said I resemble that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But are not easy to use, and we've seen, and we've worked a lot with iControl. We've got a lot of ways to go to continue proving that UI, because if it just becomes a kind of a cool techie thing, it's not going to go to the next level. So that's what we're working on, and you know, I think we debated a little bit, but you know, as an aggregator, I'm certainly of the belief that someone who can aggregate them all together is going to be critical, so that you're not just buying one solution and then it's not talking to the other solution. If you want to talk to the other solution, you've got to buy another party. You need someone in the middle, hopefully Time Warner Cable, who will kind of bring those things together. Or Comcast, yeah. What did you say?
Sorry, obvious.
You missed the press release.
Right. I was up all night prepping for this panel, so I don't know what you're talking about. So hopefully, you know, I do think an easy-to-use aggregator that the mass market, who doesn't know what Zigbee or Z-Wave or Wi-Fi or IP or the cloud means, is what's going to have to be
building on that, you know, the early adopters like the if-then sort of Boolean logic rules set up, I can do this. You know, my mother, my wife, they don't care, right? You know, they just want it to work automatically. So it's exactly that, saying, hey, I pulled into my driveway, the thermostat did X, the door lock did Y, the lights did this, my TV turned on, my voicemail stopped being forwarded. I mean, that's what's going to happen, and that's what's going to help it tip.
Do you see the sort of connected home and the wearables markets converging? How do you see that playing out?
I do. My wife laughs about these things that I wear, and I say, this is work. You know, I have to buy these things because I'm doing it for work. But, you know, it's crazy, first of all, that I have a Fitbit and a Pebble Watch, right? Obviously, somebody's going to bring these into one device. But what's interesting is, for example, back to the cloud-to-cloud API integration. You know, this is a 1.0, I mean, by definition, Pebble is a Kickstarter sort of poster child. And we have an app on here where I can go right now and change my house. I can, you know, change it from, arm to disarm or home to away or vacation. And when I switch it to away, it does all these things I talked about. Like, the thermostat, goes into off. If the motion detector goes off, it sends me a text. It turns the lights on and off so it looks like I'm there. I can do that from my watch, and it's very cool. And before I had it, I thought, well, that's silly. Why don't you just take out your phone? But now that I have it, I'm like, oh, I'm sort of lazy, and it's cooler to do it on my watch. So you can only imagine what the 3.0 version of this is going to do, right? I'm playing with the 1.0 version, and I don't know how many people overlap at the moment between the two, but I like it. I think it's going to cross over. It's a bit silly. I got a Wi-Fi scale, and I couldn't connect it to my platform. It's sort of like, it's all these things are going to just open up. If I'm going to have a Wi-Fi scale, I want all that data coming together. So I think it will cross over. It's just inevitable.
Also, I think it's worth considering that your cell phone is probably the first wearable, and for the foreseeable future will be the most popular wearable. Personally, my favorite feature of our software platform is this feature called Radius, where you tell on your phone, you say, this is where I live, and you tell it how far away from your home you want it to automatically activate an energy saving mode. And so, if I leave home and go to work, it just automatically, regardless of what my schedule is, it'll override it and say I'm not home, and so the air conditioning will shut off, or the heat will shut off. That's a wearable, right? So that is like a 0.1 kind of feature, right?
I think I heard to say like 97% of the time your smartphone is never more than 3 feet away from you.
Right.
So that is a form of it. Now, and back to protocols, like this is Bluetooth LE to my smartphone. I don't need a Bluetooth LE in the gateway because it doesn't matter. It's all going through the cloud. So I think the standards are going to emerge.
Let me just hypothesize. How about healthcare as a killer app? What do you guys think about that and future of healthcare in that elder care especially?
I think it's another micro segment, for example. Like for getting people into connected home. So let me take aging in place is a great example. There are subscribers today on our platform who are using I'm sure, an intelligent home subscriber using it for aging in place. My mother would, when she sees this video, she'll laugh at me. She's perfectly fine, but lives on her own, 72 years old. You fast forward 10 years or whatever, where she may need to go into an assisted living. If you can put that decision off for 2 years, because my toddlers have a routine, and my grandparents, when they were 90s, were more of a routine, right? So you can start slapping on. You have big data in there, all these events, occupancy, motion, like my grandfather every day at 9 o'clock went out and got the newspaper, right? So you slap an analytics engine on top of that big data, and hey, the door didn't open at 9, something's wrong with Grandpa. You can go look and see maybe he fell. Even today, with today's system, you can set up rules on our platform, say, if the medicine cabinet doesn't open because you put a door window sensor on it, by 9 a.m. send me a text. So I'm the caregiver. I subscribe for that for my mom. Like that's the start of healthcare. Then I think you have wearables and wellness will come in. Yeah. And then the next big phase that again will be built on these platforms is with the Affordable Care Act and things like that. Hospitals don't get paid. If you have a heart attack and 30 days later you get back in the hospital, well, that's a $10,000, $20,000 mistake. So they're happy to pay $100 a month to put in a system in your home with a scale that says, oh, wait a minute, if you gain 3% of weight in a 48-hour period, you're retaining water, that's a sign you're about to have a heart attack. Like you're going to start seeing this platform used in those ways, and it's not going to be the patient who pays for that, it's going to be the hospital. Right? Who's going to say, I'm happy to pay that insurance policy.
And I'd add from Time Warner Cable's perspective, it's a particularly interesting space because we actually have a commercial side of our business as well. So we sell our video, voice, and data products to commercial. We don't sell Intelligent Home yet to them. But we sell their connectivity. We've got a unique healthcare product because with hospitals, and this is beyond my understanding, but there's special security and special encryption you need because of the sensitivity of the data that's going around. So we have this relationship with hospitals, and I was just on a call last week with that team to figure out, okay, well, how can we bring the consumer space and the business space together to make, if it's doctors talking to patients and et cetera. So that's definitely a huge opportunity, and like I said earlier, what we're working on with iControl is to make sure our platform is open and flexible enough so that when it becomes a reality, we can quickly launch it and be good to go.
Yeah, as a SaaS platform provider, I'll answer sort of both. I think we were started, I think, the founders to be a home automation, connected home business, and that's probably what the VCs came in. Well, the anchor tenant was home security, right? The people understood it in North America. It's like it's got a business model that worked. And Comcast publicly stated last summer that 2/3 of their subscribers are new to the category. So they're absolutely growing it. So they're saying people who never had home security were willing to buy and pay for this, justified by home security, but they really want the interactive home services. So I think, I think our customers look at us as like, well, the first use case was security, the next use case was home automation, the next one might be aging in place. They say we want a platform that can handle all the use cases we can see and the use cases we haven't even thought of yet.